For me, I think it all sort of started in Paris during the writing of the Afterman. Not necessarily the album, but more so the accompanying text. And I think in being there, it made me sort of think, well, what's going to be the next sort of step for Coheed? So my wife and I, we decided we were going to put our house up for rent, and we were going to travel around a bit. We did LA, we did Florida, closer to her family, and then we did Brooklyn. For me, I was just kind of trying to find my identity as an artist, because, and in these new and unfamiliar territories. I wrote a little bit in LA, it really didn't work so well for me. But for the most part, it all kind of happened in New York.
I think on this record, some of the things that he had been through throughout the year were a little bit more personal, and I completely understand, such as having his baby, but also things he was going through with moving back and forth between the city and upstate. But, things that definitely warranted being put into song and music. And Claude set into this very personal, creative mode where it wasn't being dictated by any kind of concept or anything like that.
I could do the concept thing again with this album, take it and manipulate it and make it this other sort of dimension that I've used to doing with all of the Coheed records. But this one, it means so much more to me that I was like, what, I just really want this to be exposed. I really want this to be my story.
First time dad, first time mom too, Chandra, and they have their family. It's got to be quite a powerful experience, and naturally it came out in his art and through his music. I feel like the band as a whole, after 3 years of touring together and playing not just the Afterman records, but a lot of the old material too, feels more sure-footed than ever before. So going into this record, it wasn't a brand new bass player, and hey, the original drummer is back after a 4-year absence. So for Coheed, this is a really different record, beyond just there not being a story that accompanies the music. Although there is a story, it's called Claudio's Life.
This process has been very different for me, because when we did Afterman, I essentially came in and auditioned after the band had already started the record. They had already tracked with everything except bass, and I had to kind of come in and find a place in these songs that were kind of already there,
Zach is, very new to the role. Out Afterman, Zach was getting into a situation where he was the new guy. And so I think this record, and I said this to him one day, it was kind of funny, this is the record where I think Zach sort of pitches the Zach flag in the Coheed planet. You know what I mean? It's just horrible. It sounds so stupid. But really, I think that, this is the record where, he puts his stamp on it. Zach Cooper is in the DNA of Coheed and Cambria. I had this studio down the street from me that when I would wake up super early, streets would be bare, I would run over to this rehearsal spot and I try to get things done, but it was just like an uninspiring situation. Trying to work in the apartment. I'm a pretty reclusive person, so it's like trying to sing in an apartment and knowing that my neighbors can hear me, especially when you're listening in the cans and there's no context. You just hear a man yelling in a pseudo lady's voice. And at the time too, I was also working on a musical, so I'm trying to get into these characters and being like kind of flamboyant and knowing that people can hear that stuff exposed was a little frightening for me.
I think it's weird to kind of be writing about these moments because they feel so intimate, but they're so intimate to him in a lot of ways that it's like I can see what I think I see. I know what I think they're about, and I know what, you know, we've discussed songs are about, but how much of that is always a little bit blurred, you know, just because you don't want to share something with someone if it's going to hurt their feelings, or, you know, you don't want to really be completely honest sometimes because you've moved out of those phases of your life and now you have like these, you know, your life over here, but it's hard to talk about life back here honestly sometimes, I think.
I think maybe the intro could be performed a little better. I don't know if it's a different sound or not. Okay. But then like the choruses and the heavy stuff, like some fuzz. And
Fun. He's always creating, you know. It's really, really inspiring to me, you know, beyond just work ethic, the fact that he has that big of a creative soul. But so he had a collection of songs that he thought were worthy of Coheed, and we got to check them out, and the plan was to get together in a room and kind of, you know, jam them out.
Instead of doing the bar, can you just play the 3 notes there? Yeah, but hold your bend longer, and then let's just see what happens.
Jay was actually brought to our attention by our A&R, Pete Jaburga. We had just signed to 300, and so he ended up suggesting Jay as an option for the record. And I, to be completely honest, I was not that familiar with Jay's work, but because Pete was very, very interested in the idea, you know, I figured, you know, we'll do it. And then, you know, I had actually done my research after the suggestion, and I really liked the atmosphere on some of those Cage the Elephant records. So it's like, you know, maybe some of that will sort of spill onto this record. It's kind of felt in that sort of world.
And here's Jay sitting on stage with us. We're all up on stage. And, you know, he's messing with Travis's pedals. He's got headphones on. It was like he was in the band. That was a new experience for me.
Let's start with that. Should we listen back to the standard guitars and stuff? Track with him, yeah.
In talking to Jay before we came down here to Nashville, one of the things I had brought up was the idea of cutting the record live, which he was a super fan of, and I believe is sort of his method. And so he was all for it.
I remember when we were talking about coming here, the plan was to try and track stuff live, you know, as live as we could. And I think all 4 of us had a different preconceived notion about what that meant. And then we came in, and day 1 set up on the stage and just plugged in and played, and it was kind of like, wow, this is really live. This is cool. It's just the 4 of us playing these songs, and it was a really interesting process.
As much as it sounded nice coming out of my mouth, there was a bit of hesitation where it's like, well, what if we get down there and we can't do it? Which, I mean, I think is kind of crazy. We play live. That's what we do for a living. But I would even think that. But in a studio situation like this, everything gets put under the microscope, and it turned out that it worked. And one of the things I really like about Jay's process is that I've always been a fan of the happy accident. I think a lot of the guys in Coheed are. I think that's what sort of gives things its charm. Whether it's like your finger sliding down the string and it makes that annoying whatever sound you want to call that, that makes it real. You know, and I think that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make a real Coheed record.
Nowadays, producers, everything, I think, you know, with Pro Tools and computers and everything has to be perfect. And Jay said something that caught my ear about, you know, this isn't exactly what he said, but the click track is just there as kind of a guide to let you know where that time is, but it's about how the music feels. And that was really refreshing to hear, because ain't that the truth? We let the band be the real band it is. Hey, we go out on stage and we sound great, and we're just 4 guys playing. Let's record like that. I don't know if a lot of bands would do that or could do that. To just be a band in a room and record it, you know? It's wild. What a world, huh?
For the most part, this record is a band, is showing the side of Coheed performing live together. And everybody honed in on their parts ahead of time, but some things came spontaneously too. It's just a really great combination, and Coheed's never worked that way. And just the fact that it sounds the way it did coming out of that, it makes, I think, everybody in the band proud, because it's like an accomplishment that we can do this. I think that benefited the music more than anything, in the sense that there's a strength that Coheed always has live that sometimes doesn't come across in our actual albums, that will come across on this record.
Color Before the Sun is, to me, a metaphor for the colors before the art that I create before the world wakes up. There's that side of it, and the other is the time before my son was born. So for me, it just felt so very personal, and I just wanted it to be looked at objectively. And then, I started to kind of have doubts whether it should be a Coheed record. Because when anyone hears the title Coheed, they immediately think that band with the comic book, and for me, this material means so much more, that I was kind of afraid that it would just get swept under the rug as just another concept record. Oh well, I'm in Coheed, and people are not going to take me seriously. An Island has this sample at the front of it of the Brooklyn-bound Q train heading into Manhattan, and the reason I chose it is because my wife and I, we lived in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and that was one of the trains we would take from the Barclays Center into Manhattan. So I thought there was like some significance there, certainly a memory, and that's basically what Island is about leaving the city, because for me, I felt like I thought I had writer's block, because I was disabled to, by my situation in this apartment, to create to what I thought was my fullest.
Claude didn't like the drums that I wrote for Island first, and I was like, no man, I don't know, I think it's pretty good. And sometimes you gotta give Claude some time to warm up to it, which he eventually did. So we're out on tour, and before doors opened and everything was set up, we would get Claudio over by, where the in-ears board is, over here on the side of the stage, and he'd have his computer set up, and we'd be like cutting drums. Now, this isn't the most comfortable situation. You've got 100 people all running around trying to work, get the stage ready, and here we are cutting drums. Eventually, Claude got, into the Island drums, and I thought they were really kind of excited. The song gave it, I don't want to sound like a total old fart, but like a punky kind of energy.
Claudio had that song, it might be, 2.5 years at the least, might be longer. And I just remember hearing that song, and that's the song that kind of was the excitement before everything else started pouring in. The most amazing part of that recording here at the studio, it was just like we didn't know if we were going to cut it live, we didn't know how we were going to do everything. And then we came in, and everybody just had, like, it was all set up. All the dudes had the equipment all set up, and we just got right to work. We started into what became the song The Island that's on the record now.
On Island, I felt like the take that they chose to use, when I heard the playback, I was like, oh man. I was nervous first day here and kind of unfamiliar with everything, and when I got nervous, I think I just overplayed. But it was interesting because it was like the first day, learn the process. So I actually kind of hear that sometimes in the song, not in a bad way, but in kind of a cool way. There's an energy about it to me, which I think is kind of cool.
I mean, I love New York, but just in terms of creating, I really thought I had this horrible time, and yet I walked away with like an album, this musical thing that I'm doing, like all sorts of, like I created, I just couldn't see the forest from the trees. Eraser is the beginning of the identity crisis. Just who I was in the situation that I'm in, being in Coheed and Cambria, turning back the clock to the way things were. So part of that song is just calling for the old me, which is a kid, that idea of of just not caring what people think.
I never wanted to be this me. Eraser, show me that then the kid before the man.
So again, Eraser, erasing everything, identity crisis, going back to the beginning.
I love the way that the drums it's kind of like the opposite of what a lot of songs do. The drums are really big in the verse and then they suck up and get really dry in the chorus, but the guitars are really expansive and the vocal too. And I feel like we had this cool idea on the demo and we really took it to the next level.
Eraser started in the live room, and then the choruses were done in the isolated room, and it really, you can hear the scene changes.
I think, but at least when it's coming up to it.
Okay.
It sounds great at the beginning, and the note that it's going to is fucking perfect because it's not quite at the note. It's like. Brrr.
It was just like these incredible ideas, and everybody's kind of talking about them, but then we all came together, and it was like, what about this? And it was like, I was thinking the same thing. So it was kind of really amazing in that sense that everybody was on the same wavelength of experimenting with different sounds.
Not as quick to respond, but.
Well, Colors is very much almost the response to Eraser, where it's like this, well, I finally get to meet that me, and I get to sort of have these conversations with them, and then we realize that everything feels good when it's raw.
I think Colors is one of the greatest songs we've ever did and one of the greatest songs that Claudio's ever written. And I gotta say, as a drummer, the most exciting part about being in a band, I would think no matter what you play, I can only speak as, from a drummer's perspective, is being part of a powerful song. And that song is powerful to me.
Colors, I was the most nervous about because I didn't have a clue what to play for the verses. When we were rehearsing the stuff in Claude's basement, like every time we would run Colors, I would play completely different stuff over the verse, trying to find something. And I was constantly, I was playing these like chords with volume swells, and I was like, it's all right, but I don't know, maybe if I do like just long tones, or when the day finally came, it was like, okay, today we're doing Colors. And up to that point, it was like, we did Island in a day. We did Eraser in a day. It was like, I woke up that morning, I was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna mess this whole process up. And it just kind of worked out.
Funny Enough was a song that everybody was concerned about us having to cut kind of separately. And I think that was probably 8 times played together live, and maybe the 6th time was the one that everybody's going to hear on the record.
Oh, God, it would be so cool kind of hanging over the end.
Oh, I keep going.
Yeah, I know,
That's
man.
easy to go back.
Damn it.
I just wanted to fuck. I just wanted to fuck with everybody.
I was in the Disney offices and everything. Frozen 2 was ours! Goddamn fuck!
Hey stranger, been a long while since I've loved you or anything.
Mars is really just a love song for my wife. I just, she means a lot to me. She's the center of my universe, and that's really the sentiment that sort of echoes through that song.
I think in the midst of all of these identity crises that Mr. Sanchez is going through, and I think a lot of people kind of fall into this place where it's when you're really comfortable in a relationship, you've been in a relationship for a while, and you're like, great, you have this security blanket, and it's sometimes you just forget. You forget to constantly be in touch with each other. You forget that there's this other person sharing this space because you're just so wrapped up in your own head. And I think when he started to kind of come over the hurdle, he was like, oh, hey, you're still here. Nice to see you,
Some of the stuff that I think that Zach was saying, that not one note in Mars got changed. It's that's a fine example of one of those moments where you're like, hey, I'm playing with this dude. I mean, that song has a really, really strong, catchy chorus. From the day Claude played me that song, I knew that the chorus was super, super strong.
Every Coheed record has some songs that are, I don't want to say out of left field or out of right field or whatever, but to me it's not a Coheed record unless I'm hearing things that I'm not hearing other people doing. And I think Mars is one of those songs, but somehow it was able to, marry this chorus that is so anthemic and so big, and I think we did a good job of doing that. Run your hand, you can't.
Holy shit.
Hey Josh,
Explains a couple things.
That's fucking hilarious.
There's a crater in it.
dude, you just
Dude!
you destroy snare.
That fucking didn't break and it held up. It's like the rock and roll gods were on our side
I'm
today.
telling you, every snare drum is
I know.
you destroy, and then you're like, oh, finally it feels good.
Once the ram is broken in half.
Ghost is very much a song about my son, and just what kind of father I'm going to be. When we found out that we were going to have Atlas, I mean, I had a very great upbringing, just wondering what kind of father I was going to be and what kind of, print I'm going to have on him. And
experience as a whole, I like those moments where you get some air and it's just Claude and a guitar. But man, do I love that song. I think it's just a great tune, and you know, if it was me alone in my studio, I'm sure I could figure out a way to be a part of it, but damn if it wasn't just perfect the way it was, you know. And I don't want to say this too many times, but it's one of my favorite things on the record.
Clean slate, picture perfect, no mistakes. How am I to keep from blemishing this masterpiece? How am I to know? How am I to know? As a boy, I watched the world through broken eyes, given to me by men, his wife, and all they had disguised.
And then side two, we get into Atlas, and I wrote Atlas before he was born, and you know, it was me anticipating what it was going to be like away from him, you know, because I knew that in order to support my family, I have to be away, and now with the son, it's just like, you know, it really just sort of explores that idea of leaving a family.
Atlas I can really connect with. I, you know, had a baby this year, and you just love starting to write tunes for the baby. That just happens. And I remember when he sent me that song and asked me to just like throw some guitar on there, and that was just one of those like almost old school kind of Coheed moments where I just added this stuff and he was stoked on it, and it was just it, you know.
It's something you really can't put into words once you have your first child. I mean, everybody says, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, it is. And it's nobody, you know, no one will understand the experience that each person has when they have their first. And so this song was kind of, I think, for Claudio trying to process that emotion without having felt it yet. Like, oh my gosh, this is such a big thing, and I know it's going to be such a big thing. How am I going to handle it? Is it going to be crazy? I know I'm going to love this person. But we hadn't even like tapped into the amount of love that we would have at that point. So I think Atlas is a very loving song.
So sweet time, you know, rational weight of his anger, the love that is guiding him home. The love that's guiding him home.
Well, you know, if we didn't get the vocal, you get a little workout today. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the intensity is good,
Dude,
right? I mean, it's just
killer.
like fucking,
it's so
like,
good, so good. And you're not all there the whole, you know, you
Yeah.
build up to it, and it's awesome.
It's nice. I look at this as like side two. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Busting
exactly,
over.
man. You know what's funny is you guys are just like so much more. I mean, not that you weren't confident, but you were really like, "What the fuck are we doing here?" You know? And now after hearing everything, everybody's just like, "Fuck yeah, man!" It's just, you know, the body language is. You know, I'm just laughing at this today watching it. It's like, "Fuck yeah."
Young Love is about my house. It seems like a love story, but it is very much about the destruction of the Big Beige. You know, the Beige was the center of creativity for me. I kind of let it down by getting a little romantic here, but you know, I left it in the hands of these people that sort of turned it into this mess, and that was sort of my fault. You know, my wife and I were so romanticized by the idea of traveling and trying this life out before the idea of children that, you know, we just kind of, we didn't pay attention, and so the Young Love is definitely about my relationship with the baby. I remember when my wife told me, you know, we knew we had to go back up there to fix it. And so that sort of answered, you know, our question of what were we going to do next.
Like, this was a really traumatic experience for us. You know, it was the first house we ever bought. We were the first people who ever lived in it. It was like a new construction. Records had been made there. We got, you know, married there. Everything that we've been building the last 7 years, and we lived in that house 7 years, I think, and just to see it kind of destroyed. We anthropomorphized the house so much, but it was a really disorienting experience for us because we thought that we could just leave it and come back and everything would be perfect and normal. So I think there was a lot of growing up to that. You know, there was something about that experience that just hit us really hard, and you know, it's just stuff. It's just a house. It's just a structure, and I think we know that now, obviously. But at the moment, it just felt like such a personal slight to us.
And Claudio said to me, he said, "This is the song where we play it like we don't know how to play." And what he meant was just super simple. You know, the irony being that it's not simple. You know, to keep that pocket grooving like that. Do 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 ah. And I would play it like that. I'd play some of it kind of traditional and then go back and forth. And I kind of found like this neat marriage of the two. And so we're always experimenting between, you know, we have these busy, long 9-minute opus kind of tunes that take you on this journey. And then these kind of, you know, shorter, concise pop songs. Young Love was like almost a marriage of those two. I mean, to me, again, I think this record in general has a very kind of grunge vibe. You know, I don't know if saying grunge is super lame, but that, you know, that's when we were teenagers. That's the stuff that was really soaking in. Always rears its head on a record as an influence, but maybe not as much as this record.
Turn it off.
Probably my least favorite song originally on the album. It's probably, like, it blows me away how incredible it came out. You know, he's got this song that he put together, and he's like, I don't know how I feel, how do you feel? And I'm like the grumpy old man over there. I'm like, yeah, it's all right.
I was the biggest cheerleader for that song. I think Claude was on the fence about it a little bit, and I was like, dude, this is the song, man, this is great. I think he said literally, what? Are you serious? I think he thought I was messing with him, but I love this tune. I think it just marries the kind of, you know, nobody gives a fuck who you are in this bubbly pop package. That's right up Josh's alley. I love it. I hate referring to myself in the third person too. I feel like Bob Dole or something.
Before I even heard it, Josh was like, "That's the song, man. That's my jam. That song's money." It's kind of a funny song because it's like got this juxtaposition of like a kind of happy, poppy song with the lyrics, which are, you know, totally the opposite, which I kind of like. It's a very like Coheed kind of thing to do, like kind of high, like kind of a like a mean lyrics in this like kind of poppy, happy package. I think it's kind of cool.
There's something about that chorus, you know, mixing the sweet with the sting, and Claudio does that a lot. You know, it's like these kind of heartfelt, real but very heart on your sleeve, heartfelt lyrics, kind of mixed with the very dark or the very fantastic.
Really like this clarifying kind of moment of like, nobody gives a fuck who you are. Like, you know.
Oh man, playing drums is hard work. Let's do it.
'Cause nobody knows. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck who you are.
And then the audience is sort of a nod to the audience, really, that we're kind of one and the same in our oddity, and it's like sort of family.
I mean, over the years, we've gotten to know the majority of them, like personally at conventions, at shows, you know, just constant, the same faces are popping up, you know, 5-6 times a year. And social media too, I think, has made it a little bit more, you know, accessible to like see these people and know kind of who's, you know, this tier of fan. So we've seen everything from like people who met at a Coheed show and are now married and have 3 kids and are just still very like dear to us, and that I think is the scary part, is like disappointing them. And I know that the guys, all of them, feel that way every time they do something new. It's like, you want to grow, you want to change, you want to, you know, do things, but are you gonna upset, you know, these people who have stood by you for so long? But I don't think that you really can, because they've been family. You know, they've kind of superseded fandom and become a part of this extended family.
There's a little bit of darkness in there too that I don't know if I want to bring up either, but I'll keep that the mystery.
Audience is probably the closest thing to kind of crazy off-kilter Coheed song, you know, where it goes from place to place and could not throw you off, but surprise you in a pleasant way.
If I had to pick one element of Coheed that was my favorite, you know, these are the songs that make my hair stand on end. And, you know, the darker, more progressive Coheed stuff is the stuff that really gets me excited.
I'm doing them in the wrong place now because I got confused. All right. Great.
Yeah, well, it's actually it's on Hall for the second one. But yeah, I think it all makes sense in a weird way.
I think the Coheed fans in general are going to be super excited about that song just because they're going to love the different movements that go on in it. It was quite an undertaking. That's a song that I remember going back and forth with Claude via email with parts. I was sending him stuff that he was excited about, and you know, he would just send me these vocal lines, specifically the "This Is My Audience" part, that I would just be like, dude, that's so catchy. You know, that's so, like, that's one of my favorite parts of the record, because like that vocal melody and that part just stays with you. It's anthemic, and I think the Coheed fans are going to really enjoy it.
I think when you look at the record as a whole, which we always do, you know, we don't look at records as just, oh, this is 10 songs, or oh, this is 12 songs. I mean, it's about the listening experience from the front to the back. I love where audience sit. I feel like in the past that would have been the first song on a Coheed record, but you know, we've been there and we've done that. So the fact that it shows up late on the record, and it feels like there's a narrative through the record, and I love the place that it sits. I think there's just something that speaks to me about it. And I just think the way, you know, that the song was produced with those massive toms, I mean, it sounds like big, dark, scary rock music. And to me, that's the shit.
And then Piece of the Mountain is the end. You know, going back, you know, recounting all of what I am and just trying to get back there. It definitely has that punctuation of we've come full circle and we've made our decision and we've gone through our identity crisis and we've come to accept everything that we've become, and now it's time to go home.
Oh, peace to the mountain, girl, I'm gonna go. Peace to the mountain, girl, I'm gonna go. Peace to the mountain, girl, I'm gonna go. Peace to the mountain, girl, I'm gonna go.
It's my favorite ending to a Coheed record ever. I mean, I know a lot of people love when we go crazy and we have like the final cut and we do this and that. This is a tasty, like kind of saying goodbye to, you know, a couple of years. For me personally, like the way that I relate to the lyrics is of uncertainty, because you know, here we are with the actual album. It's positive. It sounds like it's like peace to the mountain. We're all out, but it's not. It's like, you know, this is a new era. Peace to the past. You know, what we've gone through in the past. But here we are. You know.
Again, this was a curveball for me. I remember when we were playing this in Claudio's basement, there were these times where he was like, man, I'm loving that stuff you're doing on the toms. So when Jay kept saying, like, lighten up on the drums. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, kind of Ringo-y, very Beatles-y, all right. Then they took my sticks away and gave me mallets. Now that helped a little bit. And then it was like, all right, dial it back, straighten everything out, and don't do the tom fills. We're going to lay them in later. I was leaving out the cymbal hit of where it's like the fill, ta-ta, do. But before we did, I think you did it on the cymbal hit.
Yeah,
like we did before. Maybe we should leave that one off.
Okay.
In my head, I thought I was playing like Ringo. I was probably still... It was like I was holding two Ringos and hitting the drums. I mean, I hit the drums hard, so this was a departure for me as a player, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the end result. I mean, it feels, you know, authentic to me. And
having the string players come in and then having the horns come in and being there, hearing them play and like layer. You know, it was like it was violin, viola, and cello. Just three musicians who came in and just played a bunch of really beautiful stuff that they could just stack and make it sound like there's like a huge string section, which was really cool.
Getting the section at the end of Piece of the Mountain very much, you know, it gave us a chance to play the Beatles, if you will. Bringing in the horns, bringing in the strings. I mean, we've done that in the past, but just not. I don't know. This time around, there wasn't an arranger involved, so you know we didn't have to go down that avenue. It was just a little more spontaneous. You know, came up with just a hair of an idea, give it, and just let it kind of become something. Be okay to have the cello rock what the horns are gonna rock? Or if the cello rocked what the horns were gonna play? Like maybe her?
The way that Jay approached it, it's almost like he almost like he has this way that he works, and he knows how he's going to do it. It's not like he kept us in the dark about it, but it was almost like, I'm going to just like, every day you're going to come in and I'm just going to let you guys play and get into this and let's catch some energy.
Halfway through, that was like the whole back half of that was killer. I think you should try to release a little before going into that first chorus.
Release
you know what I mean?
it? Okay,
I mean,
so
I love the sound of that, playing the chunks, but I'm missing that kind
the
of...
ears,
So
yeah.
if you just took your hands off for a
And just
second,
let it go?
yeah. Because you started doing that as it went on.
Okay.
Jay came in the kitchen once and he's like, I feel like I should say we should work harder, but the shit is too good. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, we came in and you know what? It had a lot to do with the rehearsals beforehand at Claudio's house. There was just something very family-oriented. You got Atlas and Chandra upstairs. You know, sure, me and Zach are away from our families, but we're with our other family. You know, Travis is going home to Rory Charles and Abby, his wife, and his child. And it just had this real family vibe. We would even do dinners where Travis's wife and kid would come over and everybody would hang out. And we whipped the stuff into shape, and we came in prepared and ready to go.
It's an intensely personal record for Claude. Like, you know, basically songs that kind of are a narrative of the last couple of years of his life. It's a great record, and I'm really honored and proud to be a part of it.
Like I said, I'm glad that this is a Coheed record because it just needed to be a Coheed record. It needed their touches to make it great, and I do. I'm walking away from it, regardless of what anybody ultimately thinks of it. I know it's great. So, and it has a lot to do with the four of us being a part of it. So.
Hey, Coheed fans, I hope that you like this record. It's a unique, very cared for collection of songs, and hop on. Come along, Coheed fans. We're gonna go on another ride.
Were you fucking with us? Was he, Caleb? Nah. Bleep.
Should I move or should I just stay like this? Come on, that's the ending of your DVD right there. That was primo.
Oh, excuse me. These burgers are good.
I'm like pouring my heart out here. Caleb, what the hell?
Sorry, Jay texted me.
Same time keeping score, and I'm not sure what I'm to do inside these walls. Not anymore. With
Put your hands together. No? Hey! Get him off the course!
You boys look a little old to be in high school.
Coheed and Cambria, and we are on the set of our video You Got Spirit Kid. We wanted to go with something that involved sort of an 80s team like the Goonies or Monster Squad.
My name is Albert Maxi Pad Steinman. Yeah. So I'm the nerd that's getting kind of picked on by the jocks. I go to the cool guy, Auto Shop Claudio, who helps me assemble this team. Dude, I just figured out your name.
Go for it.
You're Fence Murdoch.
Fence Murdoch?
That's a hot name.
I guess I'm sort of the troublemaker, cool guy that happens to be the auto shop vocational part of the school, and I pull together the resources to help Josh get revenge.
Maybe you guys hug and you're like,
Yeah, that makes more sense.
My full name is Ronnie Freihofer Schlitz.
Always
They
mean
come and
people.
get me to actually make brownies that make the cheerleaders lose their control.
I'll never have the chance that you got.
What's my full name?
Dennis?
The tennis chemist.
Dennis Rodriguez.
So that's my full name. And apparently, I was playing tennis, and then I went to my chemistry class, and these guys come and they grab me. I have to whip up some kind of gas in the air ducts, blows out on the lacrosse team, and the guys get sick.
Getting into my mascot uniform. Pretty neat. I'm excited.
So the band came to me with an idea that they wanted to do an 80s throwback music video.
It's really hot in there. I run 10 miles a day, and this is killing me.
it's not plugged in.
Zach uses a little bit of his like nerd skills to grab some of his AV equipment from the AV room and turn the pep rally into a Coheed and Cambria party. This video is about us showing a very awesome side of Coheed and Cambria that is just fun.
You boys look a little old to be in high school.
Feeling good to me. I mean, I don't know